In Chapter 4, we talk about adherence to health behavior. Adherence is a person's ability and willingness to follow recommended health practices. So adherence is going to be whether or not we commit to and stick to and follow through with whatever behaviors we've been prescribed or prescribed to ourselves to improve our health. So if a doctor gives you a specific health regimen to treat your diabetes or to prevent a condition, right? They tell you need to stick to a certain diet or stick to certain behaviors. Your adherence is going to be whether or not you actually comply with this. As we know, adherence can be a really tricky thing, right? Just anecdotally, people always report trying to exercise, trying to eat healthy, trying to quit smoking, right? All these behaviors are challenging. They tend to be hard for us. So in this lecture, we're going to cover some of the theories that psychologists have talked about, looking at whether or not people comply, whether they adhere, and how to account for when this adherence happens and when it does not happen. So our first group of theories is going to be our continuum theories. Continuum theories are theories that seek to explain adherence with a single set of factors that should apply equally to all people regardless of their existing levels or motivation. So our theory, it's on a continuum. It's this stretched out theory that comprehensively explains adherence and how and when and why it's going to happen for everyone. Our first continuum theory is the health belief model. This model states that there are 4 beliefs that are going to combine together to predict our health-related behaviors. So we fall into some category on each of these 4 beliefs, and we take our beliefs on each of those categories, combine them, and that's going to tell us whether or not we'll adhere. The first is going to be someone's perceived susceptibility to disease or disability, right? So the condition that I've been prescribed a treatment for or something to prevent, do I believe that I am at risk of it? So if my doctor puts me on a diet to prevent type 2 diabetes, do I think that I am at risk for this in the first place? Do I think that I am susceptible? If I don't believe that I'm susceptible, that's going to be a very different situation than if I think that I'm at high risk of developing this disease. Our next is going to be perceived severity of the disease. So, how severe do I think this condition is? If the idea of type 2 diabetes really scares me, right, I think that it's something that I really don't want, and I think it's really going to impact my health and my life in a negative way, I think this is severe. If I had the attitude, type 2 diabetes, it's common, it's not that big a deal, people can medicate it, that's going to really look different and really change my whether or not I'm going to adhere to this special diet. Next is the perceived benefit of health-enhancing behavior. A lot of times you might hear someone justify not sticking with a behavior because, oh, well, that runs in my family, I'm going to get it anyway, right? Or I'm bound to have this condition, doesn't matter what I do. If we believe that, we're less likely to adhere to this diet or this treatment than if we believe that this diet is really going to change things, right? What do I perceive that the benefits of engaging in this health-related behavior are? And next are my perceived barriers to behavior. So this includes anything that's going to get in my way. So if I say, I really love fast food, that's my thing, makes me happy, that's a barrier. This food addiction or just love of food, your current lifestyle. Maybe not having time to cook or cost, right? If you think this treatment is cost prohibitive, this is going to be a barrier to treatment. When we look at this model, it a little bit corresponds with the idea of common sense, right? All these factors we can just look at and say, yep, makes sense. These are going to predict whether or not we stick with the treatment. Studies, however, show us that this model doesn't necessarily predict health behavior very well. So its predictive value, not the best. When they break it down into factors, it's been shown that perceived benefits and barriers are the biggest predictors of whether or not someone's going to adhere. So if I believe that this treatment is going to be of a lot of benefit, that I'm going to get better, it's going to make a difference, and that difference will be large, and I believe that the barriers are things that I can cope with, so it's going to help me and I can do it, I'm going to be more likely to stick with this treatment. My perceived susceptibility and perceived severity are not as strong of predictors. So even if I believe that I'm likely to have this condition and that this condition is severe and life-impacting, only if I believe that the treatment's going to be a huge benefit to me and that I can do it. Next, we have the self-efficacy theory. Self-efficacy theory was proposed by Albert Bandura, which suggests that human action results from an interaction of behavior, environment, and person factors. Our main person factor especially being cognition. This theory is based on the model of reciprocal determinism. So this can be represented by this triangle here, showing us that these three different factors on the points of the triangle are going to interact with and influence each other. So my environment is going to be impacted by my personality and my cognition, as well as my behaviors. All three of these things are going to interact, and they're going to determine whether or not I adhere to a model of health treatment or preventative regimen. The key thing in Bandura's theory is the idea of self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is one's belief in their capability to exercise some control over their own functioning. So if I have self-efficacy, that essentially means that I believe I'm capable of something. I believe that I can accomplish whatever this thing that I'm trying to accomplish is. Bandura suggests that there are four main ways that we can enhance or decrease our self-efficacy. So 4 ways that we're going to be impacted. First is going to be performing or enacting a behavior. So if my regimen is, my diabetes prevention diet or something like that, when I successfully perform a behavior, my self-efficacy is going to go up. So if I say, wow, this was a really great day, I ate healthy, I stuck to my regimen, and I'm happy and I'm going to bed. I successfully performed this behavior all day, my self-efficacy goes up. When I try and fail, my self-efficacy is going to be impacted in the other direction. Our second factor is vicarious experience or seeing someone else accomplish something. So this is the idea that if you are surrounded by people, maybe you have a coworker who's successfully sticking to their health program or something, right? This can motivate you, and this person can do it, I can do it too, right? Your self-efficacy goes up. Third is going to be verbal persuasion or listening to encouraging words of a trusted person. So maybe you have a podcast and you've got your health guru whose program you're following and they put out an inspirational podcast. You listen to it all the time, right? So this verbal persuasion, you're being reminded, you're sticking to this, you're listening to what someone else says. And last would be our physiological arousal states. So if you have a high level of anxiety, this is going to decrease your self-efficacy, right? If you feel your heart pounding and you're sweating, self-efficacy is going to go down. When we talk about self-efficacy in terms of adherence, this is essentially saying that people who believe that they can do something are more likely to do it. The outcome that we expect, right, whatever we think is going to happen, this is really going to affect whether or not we actually engage in this behavior. So our expectations are impacting how we actually make this thing happen or make the adherence stick. In studies of diabetes management among adolescents, it's been shown that self-efficacy predicts better self-management and optimal blood sugar levels. So there is some research evidence to suggest that self-efficacy, that believing that one is capable of accomplishing this and capable of adhering, is a decent predictor of adherence. However, our self-efficacy is only going to be one factor, right? Bandura has this model, this one gold standard, but it's not going to be this simple. We can't boil it all down to self-efficacy, but it's a good start. Next, we have the theory of planned behavior. The theory of planned behavior tells us that the determinant of behavior is going to be our intention, right? Do we intend to engage in this behavior? Do I intend to stick to my diet? There's going to be 3 factors that influence each other and then kind of tie into our intention and determine what it is. The first is going to be attitude towards the behavior. So if I have a positive attitude towards this healthy way of eating, this is going to better predict adherence than if I really don't have a very positive attitude towards eating healthy. Next is going to be the perception of how much control exists. So how much control do I think I have over my diet? If I believe that this is me and I can make these choices, I'm going to be more likely to adhere than if I believe that this is a little bit out of my control. And lastly is going to be our subjective norm. One's subjective norm is shaped by both one's belief that other people are encouraging the behavior as well as one's own motivation. So what do I think is the norm in my world, right? It's subjective. What's normal? So if this behavior that I'm engaging in feels further outside of that norm, right? People expect me to eat a certain way. They don't expect me to be sticking to this diet. That might be more problematic than if my own norm is to stick to this behavior. Next, we're going to talk about stage theories of health behavior. These stage theories propose that people pass through a series of discrete stages as they attempt to change their behavior. So, in other words, we're going to take steps along the way. Might start off at one step and then move throughout each different stage, until we get to this end stage of existing in the new, healthier behavior that we're going to adhere to. So first we have the trans-theoretical model. The trans-theoretical model assumes that people progress as well as regress through 5 spiraling stages of making changes. So we can see here, these changes are pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. People would start down at the pre-contemplation phase. This would be the phase at which someone has no intention of engaging in whatever health-related behavior change that they want to make. So, like our example here, if we're talking about a smoker, right? I have no intention to stop smoking, or I have no intention to change my diet, right? Haven't even thought about it. I'm just going along, smoking my cigarettes, or eating an unhealthy diet, eating fast food all the time. I'm not even thinking about it. People might move into the contemplation phase next, which is the I want to stop smoking phase, or you're thinking about making that behavior change. I really want to quit smoking cigarettes. I really want to stop eating fast food and start cooking healthy meals at home, right? We're thinking about it, but we haven't actually taken any steps towards accomplishing this behavior change. Next, we have preparation. So in our smoking example, I have purchased nicotine patches and I plan to use them soon. Right? We are preparing for our change. So things like going grocery shopping with healthy diets, healthy food, looking up recipes to cook, planning out what you're going to eat for the week, right? We're making these preparation, we're taking action, but we're not actually in the next phase yet, which is action. Action is when we're actually engaging in overt behavior changes, such as stopping smoking. Right? I'm limiting smoking to no more than 2 cigarettes per day, or I'm cutting back, or I'm only going to eat out, or I'm only eating out twice this week. Every other meal I'm cooking healthy food at home. And so we're actually engaging in action, consciously creating this new behavior. And last, we have maintenance. So this would be a person who says, I have not smoked for many months and I try to avoid temptation. All right, this person says, I was a smoker, but I am currently adhering to my healthy lifestyle. Or I used to eat fast food all the time. That's not really something I do anymore. I pretty much eat healthy and stay at home. As we can see with this model, people they progress through these 5 different stages, but someone might also regress. So someone might previously have been the idea of on the wagon, right? They've taken action. They're not smoking anymore. Well, now they might regress back into contemplation. They're smoking, but they're thinking about quitting again. Then they go back to preparation. They take the steps again. They buy the patches. Then they take the action. They stop smoking, right? We can regress if we relapse into that behavior and no longer adhere to that behavior. The trans-theoretical model has been shown to be a very good fit for smoking cessation behaviors, but it has not been as successful as predicting adherence to other behaviors, such as eating a healthy diet or using condoms. Next, we have the precaution adoption process model. This model assumes that when people begin new and relatively complex behaviors aimed at protecting themselves from harm, they go through several stages of belief, right? So they have these different stages of belief, very similar to our last model, that we're going to progress through to the end stage. Sometimes we might regress. So this model says that stage 1 is going to be, I have no knowledge that I'm at risk. So this person is going along, doesn't even realize that whatever their actions are bad for their health. So someone who eats, in this example, we have a high cholesterol diet, right? Or a person who eats fast food every day. They don't even really see it as a problem, right? My body needs food, I eat the food, no big deal. Progression to stage 2 would be, you know that that your behavior is problematic, but it won't happen to me. So we call this optimistic bias. So this is when our person says, yeah, fast food's bad for you, but it's not that big of a deal. I'm fine. I'm in good health. Not going to happen. Stage 3 is when that person recognizes, I may be at risk for a health problem, but I haven't thought about making any changes yet. So this is the person who says, yeah, I realize what I eat is pretty bad, but I am who I am. From stage 3, this person is going to move either to stage 4 or stage 5. So stage 5 is when this person decides that they are not going to change, right? Realize I'm at risk, too bad, not going to do anything about it. However, if the person moves to stage 4 and they say, I'm going to change my diet, I'm going to start eating healthier, from here, that person can move into stage 6, where they actually start making changes and work at creating a healthier lifestyle, and then move into stage 7, where they would say, I gave up this unhealthy behavior and I don't have any intention of going back. So this is very similar to the trans-theoretical model that we just talked about, but we have even more stages here, right? We've kind of got even more going on, especially with that moving from not realizing you're at risk to you realize it to eventually taking steps towards changing it. Our next theory is the health action process approach. This is a theory that's going to incorporate aspects of both continuum theories and stage theories. This is a simplified stage model in that it has 2 general stages. The first is going to be the motivational phase, in which a person adopts an intention to create a health-related behavior. So they're either going to take preventative action or make changes to reduce a risk behavior that they're already doing. But they've decided that this health behavior, they're going to adopt it. In order to become motivated to engage in health-related behavior, a person must have 3 beliefs. The first is that they believe there is a personal risk. If I don't think I'm at risk of developing a problem, I'm probably not going to bother to correct or take preventative action. Second is that people must have favorable outcome expectations. So this is where someone believes that they're actually going to make a change, right? Whatever outcome of my behavior, I believe that it's going to be positive. And third, people must have a sense of self-efficacy. Remember in our model earlier, we talked all about self-efficacy, the belief that one has in one's ability to take action and follow through and accomplish this, and that it will end in positive results. Our second phase is the volitional phase. In this phase, the person makes attempts to actually change his or her behavior and to persist in these changes over time. In this phase, planning is a crucial part. So this person plans out the behavior and gives themselves the tools that they need in order to accomplish this behavior.